It Out Loud, a podcast by Chasing the Rainbows with your host, Bernice Quisenberry.
On this week's podcast episode, we are doing Coping Tools Out Loud, and we are here with Tony Shear, who is our Director of Programs at Chasing the Rainbows, also an infertility survivor and a licensed trauma therapist. Welcome, Tony. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, you and I were talking, pre-show about how we wanted to talk about different types of coping tools and how they work specifically for infertility, pregnancy loss, and infant loss survivors. And, just remembering being on our secondary infertility journey, and then after our baby losses, I would try anything to give me some sort of relief during those immense amounts of, significant pain you feel right at the beginning of our, traumas and losses. And so, I found new ways of processing thoughts and feelings outside of the box, and just expressing myself and ultimately shaping the person I am, and I've grown into today.
Sure.
Would you not agree, Tony? Yeah.
I absolutely would agree. I mean, that's one of the things that becomes so important. And I think what we're looking at today is we're also looking at some very creative, out of the box kinds of things that other survivors have talked about, or that we've done some research on ourselves. And I think it's important to just help people understand that, there's no wrong answer in this, and not everyone that we talk about today is going to fit for everybody, but there may be a couple that, really resonate with you, and it gives someone an opportunity to really try something different to bring healing. And that's what coping skills are about. They're about, giving you an opportunity to kind of get your whole system back to a state of homeostasis so that you can continue to function, because coping is critical for our survival. And it's very, very difficult to do, especially when we've been, when we go through any kind of traumatic loss in general, grief. These are when we really are compromised and thinking out, what can I do? What can I do to get through this time? Yeah. Because it's very hard to look at the fact that you can get through it. At this point, you're just trying to survive. And that is, again, it's an instinct. But we're going to talk about really creative, different, options and kind of why these might be helpful today as we, explore this. So we hope it's helpful. I know that in talking to a lot of survivors through Chasing the Rainbows, these coping opportunities and interventions come up a lot as what can you do? So I do want and I do want to just say thank you to all the women that I've met so far, in particular, who have really helped, format this discussion today. And some of you may hear your own ideas that you've talked about. So please know I'm giving credit there, that some of these things have already been done and have been incredibly helpful to people. So
absolutely. And, I think it is really important to note that, hour by hour, minute by minute, especially in the beginning, one thing that worked for coping just an hour ago might not work now, and it is just having that array and different ones to try, because in that moment, and also any coping skill that I did prior to our journey, right out the window. It actually, nothing worked. And, trying to find those new ways.
Correct. Yeah. And it's about, life is about a toolbox. That's how I always look at life, like really adding to my toolbox. The more tools that I have, the more projects I can do, the more things I can accomplish. And that's the same with learning how to cope in different ways. Different scenarios, as you pointed out so eloquently, different scenarios require different options. And we have to just have more and more of these. And if it's not necessarily for you, it also, adding to the toolbox, allows you to also help other people who may be going along. So even if it's not something that works for you, it may work for someone that you know.
Right. Absolutely. So. Yeah. Or give you an idea for coming up with something that may work for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, a caveat of something else. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very important.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thanks so much, Tony. And with that, let's kick it off, with art journaling. That is something. I did a coloring book journal, after we lost Brooke, and it was great in expressing myself in just a different way.
Art journaling, absolutely. Art journaling can take on, a different process. Now, since you and I have spoken, I did create a different format on some of these interventions. So just so you know, I'm going to deviate a little bit, but
Yeah.
art journaling is an important, very personal way to, allow yourself to express your emotions. So art journaling is not necessarily, it could be where you buy an adult coloring book and you color in it if that's something that you wish to do, but more so it's creating different formats for your journal. So it could be creating collages can be incredibly healing, and that's with cutting out different things that are speaking to you in that moment, kind of putting them together. It could be just doing a doodle or a scratch, a sketch. It could be literally just coloring a page in its entirety so that it has all different colors that are blending. It could be writing. It could be, creating kind of snapshots of pictures that you've collected along the way and you just want to put in there. But it's an opportunity to just, again, not necessarily create beautiful art, but more so just to capture your feelings in that moment. And it just works as an entry that you would write, only this is done with some kind of art format.
Oh, that's great. That's great, Toni.
So one of the ones, if I can start with
Yeah.
Looking at some of these that I kind of put in a different kind of order as they
Yeah.
spoke to me. And again, this is very personalized. So this is what it spoke to me. So the one that grabbed my attention, and I know part of this is because this is how I have helped heal myself, has to do with creating a memory garden. And
Yes.
this is really, it doesn't have to be outside with a big area. It could be something that you plant in a planter. It could be something that you put on your windowsill, but it's really creating, growth out of usually beginnings of seeds or of little seedlings. And you just allow yourself to create this natural, event,
Sweet.
whether it be,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It can be, and I got to tell you, there is one survivor I've been working with, and she has created this amazing garden outside. She started it as a distraction tool, and it created this beautiful outside garden where she has fed her family with this. It has vegetables, it has sunflowers, it has
Yeah.
beautiful growth, and just the love that she put into this is so beautiful. And she sent me
Yeah.
pictures, she's all excited about it. But again, this is where you create what is important to you, digging in the dirt, all those kinds of things are incredibly healing.
Yes.
And you create special meaning in it. So
Yeah.
it's a place that you can honor a loved one. It's something that you get to be a part of with your hands, your growth, and there is a benefit that comes from it because things
Yeah.
blossom or grow.
Absolutely. And
So
it's interesting. I know I'm going to butcher this word, Toni, but there's Mycobacterium
yes,
vacci in soil. That's an antidepressant. It's natural.
it
And that's why
absolutely
I
is.
say it's so healing, to get your hands in the dirt, actually be out there, expose yourself, and
Mhm.
it's a healthy way. But it's interesting, to see, because you do get those feelings. And
You
it's
do.
also a nice way to be outside. Also, breathing in
Vitamin
fresh
D.
air. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, all these natural things that are important for our overall health. And again, that's one of the things that we tend to kind of put aside when we're grieving. But again, just getting in this dirt, I have, again, this isn't relevant to my infertility, but with the death of my mother, which I've talked about before, because she's so significant to me, she was a master gardener. So this is why this is also near and dear to me. So
Yeah.
just so you know, it's personal connection. But we created, with statuary, because she was a master gardener, a plaque had been done at a local school with her name on it, and we were given that back when they made some changes. So I was able to actually, in our garden area, create a space that is really dedicated to her. That
Oh,
can be done also in regards to baby loss, like the loss of your baby, creating a space that is just this beautiful place that is yours. You can go, you can reflect, you can sit a bench out there. This is just something that, again, it's a creative, out of the box way of thinking about coping with the
yes.
loss of such a loved one.
Yeah. And it does. It gives you that mindfulness that you can go and spend time, and, for me, it's just processing or, talking to,
Mhm.
and just feeling like I'm communicating and honoring that space, with Brooke and her, yeah.
Absolutely. And so along with that is tree planting.
Yeah.
Again, might not seem like something that you think of in regards to a coping mechanism, but creating a tree in the memory of a loved one, a baby, is something that you're able to do. So sometimes picking a tree that obviously is going to work in your area is very important, but also picking a tree that has a certain meaning for you. And again, very similar, this tree, the growth of it emulates just the love that you have for a living being. And in this case, it's being able to nurture this tree as it grows, and it just is an ongoing reflection of the love that you have shared, no matter how long, no matter how brief. Something that can be considered a little plaque that you can create in memory of some local. I did this actually. We have close to us, we have what's called an environmental center. So one of the things that they let people do for free is you can plant a tree in someone's name, in someone's honor. You can bring a group together. It's a way of emulating someone. I know a lot of people have done memorial services. So this is something that can be done around that. You plant the tree, you put a plaque out, and it stays a part of this area that is designated in your community. So, that is something that also can be considered. So churches allow you to do that oftentimes. Many churches have walkways for people to come to, and they designate certain spaces that people can plant trees. So it's just something to think about. You would, of course, have to come up with the cost of the tree, but they don't charge you to plant it.
Yeah.
So it can be something that's beautiful. One of the things that I love to think about as far as a coping mechanism, because this is something that you would create. It's not something that's one and done like the tree planting, although you would have to maintain it, whatever. This is more of this. To me, when I think of memory quilting, this is creating a beautiful reflection of the time spent with your baby. So some people gather things that are okay with, and we just were talking about this pre-show, if you're okay with allowing some of the special items that you had designated for your baby to be used, creating a memory quilt with their clothing, perhaps receiving blankets, things that again have a fabric texture, but can be put together into a beautiful quilt that can be used to memorialize a loved one. Yeah. Some people have found that to be incredibly healing. And I know you were saying, even if, some hospitals or some, agencies will actually provide a quilt, even if it's not personalized. Yes. But that also can be a very tangible, piece of memory that becomes incredibly healing for someone. So kind of holding on to that.
Yeah. And it is, Tony, you're right. And for us, getting it from the NICU, they gave us a quilt. And I didn't want to take apart personally anything of Brooks that we were designating as hers. But that was personal. Like, it is all a personal choice, and whatever feels right to you, especially in those moments when, you are deciding or what you, want to do for you.
Right. And the nice thing about a quilt, when you think about quilt, you think of comfort. So it's a comfort keepsake. It's something that just can bring comfort.
Yeah.
So I do love that idea too. Another piece to think about when you were looking at different ways of coping is customized jewelry. This is something that's pretty big right now. You can create this yourself, or you can find a jeweler, or you can order online. A lot of places you can, find some jewelry pieces online, and this becomes a special piece that is significant to you. I do know that oftentimes pictures of, baby's feet, things like that can be used. A lot of people that I speak to have engaged in cremation. So the ashes can be used in jewelry and made into beautiful jewelry. That again, you can also add their names, you can add their birth date, their death date, whatever is personal to you, and then you wear it, and that becomes a piece of you, that you have every day to carry with you. So customized jewelry can be an incredibly beautiful coping intervention that you use, and again, benefit from every day by getting to hold that close to you.
It's true. Yeah, I have.
I was just gonna say, I saw you grab it. You started playing with it. I did too with mine.
Yeah, and it's called a company. Yeah, it's a company called Thumbees that does it, but it's Brooks feet prints. So we got copies of them from the NICU, and then they can turn it into
Yep.
anything. It can be on ornaments. It can, but right. It is like I do grab this a lot during the day, the necklace, and just kind of play with it a little bit. And it almost like grounds me,
I do the
especially
same
in those
thing.
moments.
Yep. This was my mother's necklace. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I hold on to it and I wear it every day. This is my piece of
Yes.
jewelry. And it's just,
Yes.
there's something about it that you
Yeah.
can absolutely hold on to, right?
I
Because
know,
that's what we
right.
do. That's kind of
Yeah.
what we tend to need at times,
Yeah.
just to just have that tangible hold.
And it's true.
Pardon me.
And, times, with miscarriage, stillbirth, all those things, the only thing we have or, potentially could have is just a positive pregnancy test. So when all
Right.
your, that's all we have left in those moments, we don't have, a t-shirt that smells like them or a hat that smells like them, with other loved ones who may have passed, it's such a unique
Mhm.
situation that having something tangible is so important to hold on to, especially, when you're feeling those empty arms, because empty arms never felt so heavy in these situations.
And I do want to speak to that because with your conversation about empty arms, because one of the coping interventions that you used was the
Right.
Cuddle Cub. Do you want to talk about the Cuddle Cub and the
Yes,
significance of that for you?
absolutely. So, when our daughter Brooke passed, we got a weighted teddy bear the same size as she was when she passed. And it really was those empty arms. Like they hurt and ached so bad to just wanting to hold your baby. It's just a natural instinct that happens, with the birthing person. And so I like needed to carry around this security, and it almost got me to transition into different
Mhm.
ways of coping and things like that. But in those first weeks, I needed that
You did.
to hold on to.
And I remember walking that journey with you because one
Yes.
of the things that it also became was a thermometer for your healing. So
Yeah.
there were times that you could not let that baby down. You would,
Yeah.
you carried this baby with you everywhere. And
Yep.
then there came a time when the baby didn't come with you and the baby was very prominent at home, but the baby didn't leave your home.
Yeah.
But it was in a prominent place. And then eventually you were able to keep moving to the point where, again, your Cuddle Cub has a
Yeah.
special place, but it's not necessarily in your day to day. And
Right.
that again it's a thermometer to your
Right.
healing process. And we don't think we're ever going to get there when you're in that
Yes.
moment, but
No.
you get there, and it just takes some time. Now, I do have someone that I've worked with recently through CTR that bought a similar type of product. And I just want to put this out there because they ordered it online. They ordered a teddy bear that
Yeah.
was the weight of their baby at her death. And this bear, though, came very big. It was a very
Wow.
big, like it's a big bear.
Wow.
And she laughed about it, but it was like it took months to get here. And when it got here, it was like this huge bear. Only it did weigh the weight that her daughter did upon her death. However, it was very bulky and very big.
Yeah.
Yours was very tiny and
Yes.
very easy to maneuver. So sometimes you have to just take that into consideration too, is, really research that as to what does that product look like. Again, she's grateful that she has it, but it's not one of those things that would be very easy to take with her if she felt she needed to do that outside
Right.
her home.
Yeah, and it's true. It's, I never envisioned myself being that person needing to carry around an item,
Mhm.
after losing someone. And then, this whole situation just, and
Mhm.
around all the events with Brooke and losing. Yeah, it changed my whole, thought process, because who knows how I would have reacted, like we saw society react to me when we were out in public and I was carrying around this Cuddle Cub,
Mhm.
and it's like I understand, and how it might be viewed, but it's also a great opportunity to, able to speak to this and advocate for other survivors to say, hey, this
Absolutely.
happens after baby loss.
Right. And making it okay that,
Yeah.
again, it's part of your healing, and there's no reason to be ashamed of any way that you choose or multiple ways that you choose to
Right.
get through this grief, because that's really, it's your personalized way of getting through. So with that,
Right.
we were talking about the custom jewelry. We talked about the Cuddle Cub. Another is that people sometimes do tattooing. So I've had
Yeah.
women I've worked with who had miscarriages and their baby never came to be past 20 weeks. And what they did is they created something that emulated the miscarriage, and they had that imprinted on their skin, and that
Yep.
was important for them.
Yep.
So one woman in particular, she called hers her pumpkin.
Yeah.
And so she
Oh,
created
yeah.
a tattoo with a little pumpkin, and that was, she and her husband actually did it together.
Right.
So again, there are different ways that people can memorialize the significance of their loss.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's how my sleeve got started. And I always say, I wear my heart on my sleeve as, it started with Brooke's birth flowers and then it turned into, other things. But it is true. And I think symbolizing for us, like Brooke was our little astronaut too, like that's what we called her. So like every time we see an astronaut or, something science related like that, it just does remind us of her. And then, cardinals are also significant, pumpkins, I've heard elephants, you hear different things. And it's however butterflies, you signify.
That's right.
And it's true. Having, a tattoo, it just is something concrete. And I feel like for me, that was something too that I needed.
That's
Yeah.
true. And that's the other piece of that. I think that's why with the significance of the miscarriage, it is so important, because you never really get to see this piece of it usually. Maybe you have an ultrasound here or there, but not really anything of significance. So being able to create something that really is a tangible representation can be incredibly healing.
Yeah, that's great.
And again, like you said, there's no wrong answers in this.
Right.
Memory boxes with letters. So some people have done journals where they have written to their babies for a period of time. Sometimes it can go on, for as long as you need it to. But most times I've heard a lot of people talk about a year as their game plan. That's their intention anyway. And then there have been different thoughts on what to do with those journal entries or the letters that are written. Some people want to create books around them. One idea is a memory box, and the memory box is something that, we see these beautiful boxes out and about all the time where you can create whatever box works for you. And this becomes a safe haven, almost like a shadow box, only it's something different. And you can put other things in there if you want. It doesn't have to be just the journal letters, the letters to your baby. It can also be, special things that were significant to your baby. A lot of people do visual memorials in their homes. And this would be perhaps a safe place to also put some of those memorial pieces that you want to hold on to and you want to treasure. So memorial boxes can be a really beautiful way of doing that. Mindful crafting. And what that is really some of the things that you think of when you think of crafting: crocheting, knitting. It can be pottery, things that you're using your hands. You're in it, and it's creating something that becomes tangible outside of what you've created, what you finished. One of the things about crocheting and knitting that is also incredibly important is that it's a bilateral movement. And when we are going through very traumatic times, any kind of bilateral movement where you're using both sides of your brain, it almost becomes rhythmic, and it also becomes a natural way of healing and balancing you. So those can be incredibly helpful tools to get through very difficult times. So if you have that talent and it's something that comes natural to you, or you want to learn it, this would be a really great time to do that, because it can be incredibly healing. One of the ones that I really find to be, some people have a harder time thinking about this, but others, this will speak right to you. And a sensory healing jar, which you create similar to the memory box. You find a jar, something that's open, maybe see-through. And these are tangible things that are either representations or things that were important to you, representing your baby. It could be a diaper pen for those of you who may not have used, who had that opportunity to have diaper pens. Maybe it was a brush that has the soft bristles, things that you had specific for your baby that you can put into this healing jar. And there are times when you need it, you pull it out and you play with the things in it and just give yourself some comfort with that. I have clients who come in and they use the tools, the little metal tools. They're like these little games they keep in their hands, kind of like a fidget. And basically what you can create with your healing jar is a sensory opportunity to fidget when you have those nerves that just need to be calmed and you need to hold on to something that, again, is significant to your baby. This can be an incredibly healing intervention for you to try. Mindful cooking. I love this idea. And this can take on various ways of participating in mindful cooking. So the one that I really loved was creating either varying a current recipe that is of comfort to you, or creating a new one in memory of your lost baby. So this becomes that special dish, that special something that you can literally eat, taste, and just reflect on, the baby that was significant to you, or babies in some cases. But this becomes a dish that you create that is in their honor and in their memory. Also with that, you can create a baking ritual where perhaps, once a week you create something that is sweet and fun, and you do it with your family, your partner, whomever, and you do it in memory of your baby. And every week you just do something different, and it's just a baking ritual. Another is that you use ingredients that bring comfort: lavender, vanilla, citrus, that you create these kinds of dishes that help with bringing out those scents, and it creates that sensory reaction that again can help calm you. So mindful cooking is something to maybe consider.
And I think so too, Tony. Sometimes, and for me, this was, the thing, grocery stores were very triggering, after going through loss, and, because you're not knowing who you're going to run into or what you're going to see. It's just very overwhelming and triggering. So, what's interesting is this gives you that excitement then to go back out there and go looking for these items, and, and gets excited about cooking again too. Because I didn't really cooking after, losing the frog.
And we have to nourish ourselves, right? Again, that one thing that we typically may put to the wayside. Yeah. So this becomes a very mindful, decisive, intentional dish that you do, or creation that you create that again has secondary benefit for you.
Right.
So I love this one. This one is also pretty significant. And that has to do with creating a song. So there are local musicians. Many people know very talented musicians that you could work with, or perhaps you just do it yourself. There's also apps out there. There's music apps out there that you can create your own music, create your own lullaby, about your beautiful baby. That can be something that, again, can be incredibly helpful. Yeah. Along with that, creating perhaps a healing music playlist, so that you put together music that speaks to you. I can tell you that one of the things that has been helpful to me has been music I never used to listen to. So the music that I was drawn to after loss for me has been very angelic, very soft music that, again, was never something that appealed to me. But when I needed to really be mindful, be reflective, and to be with myself, that music tended to help me. So having a playlist that you can just put on and use. Again, old school. So I have a beautiful set of CDs that I can put in, I can listen to. It's easier for me than playlists, but that's a whole different story.
We did add a couple. Tony. So at Chasing the Rainbows, we added a couple songs to a playlist that we give out to survivors and things like that, just to get them started or to get them thinking about a couple songs that we've heard from survivors, that help them along the way and what it kind of looks like. So if anybody needs that too.
Wonderful. So where would they find that?
Yeah, it's found on our Apple account. So I can also include the link on, our podcast today.
Perfect. That may be very helpful. And this also, again, remember, a lot of CTR, activities that we do are interactive. So if there is some healing songs that have been reflective of you, please don't hesitate to reach out through Facebook. Let us know so we can get those things added perhaps to the playlist. Would that be okay?
Absolutely. That would be wonderful. And our community needs to rally. What might have worked for me or for the next person might not work for the next. So, it's all about us helping and uniting as survivors.
That's right. Yeah. Mindful movement, very important, and should not be overrated at all. It should be thought through. So one of the things when we're trying to reset our homeostasis is we need to consider movement, and movement doesn't have to be significant. It can be very, very soft and very flowing. So yoga, we do have definitely on our site, we have the breath work, we have the yoga. I know a recent presentation was couples yoga on the CTR website. So again, consider that. That can be incredibly helpful, or whatever you utilize. or come across, or possibly going out and, going to a gym when it's appropriate to do so for you. But also Tai Chi, another one, energy work, using really positive energy from within yourself. Dance, again, not something to be underrated. Zumba, when again, you have permission to do so, just moving your body, and it helps you to be in touch, control something that you feel when life takes things away that we can't control. Being able to move your body is within your control, and also helps you really center yourself and be in touch with all the emotions that go on inside of you. Music and movement can bring out a lot of that. One of the most odd experiences I ever had is I had attended a yoga class way back. It was part of a presentation, and I was not even aware or in touch with a lot of the emotions that I was having going through my infertility, in truth, because at that time it's not something you really talked about. So I just remember going to this yoga studio, and they had you get into position, and before I even really got into any, I think it might have been the child's pose, and I think it was the child's pose, I'm sobbing. Out of nowhere, I'm releasing whatever it was that, again, it was grief that I was holding on to, that I was not even aware. And it was just through that movement that when the words were expressed of what to do, and I just was able to let that go. And I'll tell you, that was a remarkable healing movement for me. Wasn't so great at the child's pose, but I definitely still felt the release and the emotional release with it. So that was really, really helpful.
Absolutely.
So a couple more before we're done for today, but I had the experience of speaking to someone recently, and she created this amazing self-portrait. Now, she's an artist, so that helps. But she, as a survivor, created a portrait of herself. She also did this for a friend, and she showed me pictures of this. And what she incorporated in the self-portrait was, and again, the self-portrait does not have to be, it's not a Monet. It's something that you create for yourself, but it could be represented through various things. It doesn't have to look like you. It could be anything that represents you. And then she intertwined pieces from her journaling that she had been doing for her baby that were significant to her, that she wanted to create in this beautiful self-portrait. It was stunning, absolutely stunning. And it just was so important to her because it was so personal. And that's something that she can frame, she can, put somewhere that's special to her, but it also becomes a way of capturing the emotion that she has with her loss. Just again, a few more. We have the traditional guided meditation and visualizations. Again, those should not be forgotten. They're very, very important to our overall functioning. And also, a lot of reproductive trauma work really is emphasizing this notion of writing our reproductive stories. Our reproductive stories start in our childhood, years before we even really give thought to it. And it's kind of what we start to think about as far as what our reproductive journey is going to be. But the reality is that most of us do not have that reproductive journey become what it becomes. Because life is not as it was as children when we created it in our imagination or what we were influenced by. We change as life goes on. And circumstances change this too. So it's important to really consider, as part of your journaling, is maybe writing your reproductive story. What was your reproductive story, and what is your current reproductive story? And by writing that out, it also can be incredibly healing because, again, change is okay. And by writing out your reproductive story, your losses or loss becomes a part of that current story. And it's a way to permanently emulate and remember that your current reproductive story, regardless of what the outcome has been, still includes all of these experiences that you've had. So that can be a very therapeutic and very healing intervention to use.
Processing out loud and sharing out loud, writing it out loud, like writing it down, like all of those things, Toni, right? It takes away the power from some of those thoughts too. Like it cuts it in half each time. I felt like, if I wrote something down very concrete, boom,
That's right. And it also, again, you might write several reproductive stories as your process evolves. I know definitely writing my reproductive story is very different than what I projected as a child. It's not at all the same, and changed very, very differently at different stages of my life. So it doesn't hurt to do several redos of that because you change, as we've talked about. We have with CTR, we have on our website, we have the honor wall that you can write your story, and that becomes a part of, again, it's an existence. It's something that exists and something that stays a reflection of your experience. So that's also a way to, intervene on any coping that you may need to do, or just some dysregulation you have. Writing your story about your baby, that it becomes a part of CTR. If it's not something you want to hold on to in your home, put it on our wall. We would love to hear about the story of your baby.
Absolutely.
And then just a couple more charitable acts. This is one of my favorites. Yes. And meeting the woman who really talked about this to me. I had heard this in various forms. Like I heard of a person who had lost a baby. And so what they did is they would go into the local bakery, and every year as their baby would age, they would go in and they would pay it forward. They would pay for however old their child would have been. They pay for someone's birthday cake, birthday cupcakes, whatever, who was turning the age that their baby was. And then they would make a little indication to that person and say, basically, this is complimentary of, your baby's birthday in memory of mine, who would be this age on this date. So, God bless you, or whatever your belief is. And they would kind of provide that. So that was one of the stories that I had heard. And then another woman, she is just something. She created these vouchers. And she actually, I won't go with her name of it, but she created something that had the baby's name in it as kind of the gift. And she created these vouchers, and she would use this in so many different ways. Like if she went into McDonald's, she would say, well, how much is the person's order behind me? And she would pay for it. And then she would say, hey, please give them this coupon. And when they would come up to the window, this was taken care of for the woman in front of you. This is in memory of her baby. And it would have on this coupon her baby's name, and it had basically what she was doing. So, some kind of pay it forward type of gesture, which was beautiful. So again, and that's something that can be considered. The other is a charitable act of some sort, getting involved with a group or doing something for someone else in memory of your baby. Again, it is a way of just doing good, being kind, and also heals your soul. So again, something to consider. There's also, volunteering. I know CTR exists because of the wonderful gifts that survivors, all of which are, provide to CTR. So you don't have to be, you have to be in a place where you feel that giving is something that is good for you, not something that's going to take away from your journey. But there's so many different ways to get involved, and it doesn't have to be with CTR. Of course, it can be any group that gives you purpose and gives you an opportunity to continue to heal. So these are just some of the things that we've thought of, and that other people have gifted to me. But we have to remember that, part of the importance of, having interventions and coping is so that we can, as we've talked about, heal. And that's what this is all about. Learning how to have emotional regulation, learning how to empower ourselves in situations where we don't feel that we have any power whatsoever. All of this promotes healing, and that's what we're all about. Absolutely. So I hope that you find some of these ideas to be helpful. And again, if you do utilize them and you find that they are helpful, please let us know. We would love to hear from you on that. So thank you for today.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you so much, Toni, for sharing all of those different coping skills. And hopefully our survivors do, get something out of it. And like Toni said, please write in. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what's worked, what hasn't worked. If there's something that you want us to cover or talk about, we would love all of that from you. So, yes. Well, thank you again, Toni, for being on. And thank you, listeners. Yes, for tuning in. Please subscribe to our podcast to help us reach as many survivors as we can with all of our free services. And we are always with you, infertility, pregnancy loss, and infant loss survivors. Until next time. Thanks again, Toni.